Good morning. My name is Martin Rakers, and today I'd like to talk to you about Google Forms. Google Forms is something that I think will be very useful to you in your classroom. It's got a lot of practical uses because essentially it will help you make online tests and surveys of your students. Before we get started, I do want to tell you that you're going to have to look into this and explore it for yourself as well, because there's so much possibility here that I couldn't possibly put it into just a few minutes of explanation. So when you first start with the Google Forms, obviously you click on Go to Google Forms, and then you will see something like this. Now this one says, see, you have no forms yet, and it gives you a bunch of options right off the bat. Contact information, RSVP, party invite. But if you click over here on the more down arrow, then you also see that there are education possibilities. And we have exit tickets, assessments, worksheets, and course evaluations. What I'd like to focus on today is the assessment portion. So if we click on assessment, you'll notice it takes a few seconds to load up, and we can right away start by editing our title of our assessment. We can edit the instructions to the students. Perhaps there's a few things that they need to keep in mind before they even start the test. And then as we scroll down, you'll see here's the place where the student would enter their name and their email address. Now I teach middle school, and so the email address portion I don't think is necessary for my students. So if I wanted to remove it, all I would have to do is click on the email portion and then click delete on the bottom toolbar. And that way it disappears, and then we can continue on with making our test. Now the questions is really where I think a lot of the usefulness comes in for Google Forms. You'll see here at the top right hand corner there's a drop down menu, and there are several different types of questions that you can actually insert into your Google Form. So we can make short answer, paragraph, check boxes, drop down menu. We can even do a linear scale, which I'll show you a little bit later on. We can then put in our question, and obviously we'd put in our 4 options. Perhaps if we wanted to add a 5th option, all we would have to do is click down here and it just adds another option for us. Now another part of the Google Forms that is really powerful is the possibility of the answer key. If we click at the bottom left of our screen here, you'll see that we can then create an answer key. So here the correct answer is already labeled as being B, but if we wanted to make it be D, then we could do that. We could have them both. We could deselect the one or the other. Once we've gotten our final selection, we can also incorporate a comment for the students that they'll see after they've completed the assessment if they get the question wrong. So we can explain why a certain letter is correct or not. We can put in a little joke there to lighten the mood, or whatever we would like to put in there. We don't have to. We can also just remove that portion of it. Here at the top right hand corner, we can also determine how many points this question is going to be out of. Obviously, for some questions you're going to have more points than others, so you can even adjust the weighting of the particular question. If we go down here to the second question, you'll notice they have an automatic checkbox question. But if perchance we wanted to make that a drop-down menu, we could, and we just enter our options here. We can also make it a short answer question or paragraph question, and as you can see, it adapts right away as soon as you click. Now this floating menu along the side here also allows us to add another question. It also allows us to give a separate title or description for the question. We can incorporate an image or a video, or we can even create a new section, which basically is like a page break. So once the students have finished the questions that you would like them to do, you can insert a page break so that they can then go to the next page to do the next set of questions. Now I'd like to show you one of the assessments that I've already created in one of my other accounts, and it's just a fun assessment for my students to do when they come into my classroom in September. Just a getting to know me quiz. So as you can see, I've created a how well do you know Mr. Rakers quiz. My first question, what is my favorite animal? And here is where the linear scale, here you see the linear scale. Now, this question is supposed to go at the end of the test, so I could even just drag it down so that it appears later on in my test. What I can also do is perhaps I say, well, I'd like to have a scale of 1 through 10. Well, all I have to do is go over here to next to the 5, and I can make it a scale between 1 and 10. I can also change the titles of these, of what a 1 is and what a 10 is. And as you can see, I've already done that. Once I'm finished my test, I'm able to preview it. So if you click here at the top, just below the toolbar for Google Chrome, you click Preview, and then it shows you what the student will see for this assessment. So here, the student can go in and they can, you can even do the test as a trial run. I'm going to intentionally click a wrong answer, and that way you'll also see the error response that comes up later on. Each of these questions I've made required, so I do have to answer them. And you'll notice I put a page break here, so now I have to click Next prior to continuing. Here again, this would be a long answer question, and the lines will appear as I type. So if I want to type a big long paragraph, I could. I'm just going to type in yes for now, just to fill in the blank. Finally, here you'll see that I've incorporated a picture of my own. So this is a moon snail that I always go on a field trip to show my students at the beach. And it simply asks here, what is the living thing on the picture above? This is the Pacific moon snail. And now I can submit my response. So now that I've submitted it, and again, this is what the student would see, you can have the option to view my score or submit another response. If I want to view my score, it brings me back to this test menu, and you'll see here I intentionally chose the wrong answer, and the correct answer was a snail. And so my comment for that was, what goes slow never leaves home and eats the waste of others? A snail, of course. Now, as you can tell, I didn't do very well on this test. This question was out of 3 points, and I scored 0 out of 3. One of the nice things with Google Forms, and this is the last thing I'd like to show you, is the option to see the student response. So here you'll see this is the questions, and I can edit them as I want, but you also have the option to click on responses. This will show you the history of all the students who have taken this test already. You'll see I've gotten 5 responses so far, and I can get either a summary of these responses, or I can look for the individual responses of a particular student. As you can tell, on the first question, there was not very many students who did very well. And this is one of the neat things, that it even goes through and tells you which questions were done well and which ones were not. So each of the questions has its own little graph and demonstrates what is correct and what isn't. For the long answer question, obviously the computer is not able to assess that, so it simply gives you a running tally of the different responses that have been given. Hopefully you've gotten to know a little bit about the power of Google Forms. I know this is all very introductory still, and there is still a lot more that can be done with it. I'm going to be spending a considerable amount of time trying to make some assessments for my students for this coming school year, and I hope that you will be able to do so as well. Have a wonderful day.